Hey folks, this week we're talking about faster gaming on Linux and the parting of ways that may be coming to the Linux kernel regarding Bcache FS. There's an affordable Linux phone that secretly runs Android. Wine is getting closer to supporting the NTFS sync, and a bunch more stuff that you don't want to miss, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 209, recorded Saturday, June the 28th, riding off into the sunset. Hey folks, it is Saturday, and you all know what that means. It's time for the Untitled Linux Show. We're going to talk about the OS itself, gaming, hardware, all kinds of stuff. There'll be drama, there'll be wins. It's going to be a lot of fun. It is the trio today. I've got Mr. Rob Campbell and Mr. Ken McDonald with me, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. Guys, we've got some stories here. We're going to let Rob go first, and we kind of have a theme. We have a couple of themes, and it's a good theme, most of it. We'll get to the drama later. Rob's going to bring the drama too.
I saved that.
You saved that for last, yeah. But Rob, what is the... give me the good news first.
Well, so anecdotally, I've always said my games run faster on Linux using Proton than they even do natively on Windows. And, you know, I've had debates, arguments, whatever you want to call them, with people in various places online, with people disagreeing and all the stuff involved, you know. And I didn't know, you know, if I was just imagining it or what. I didn't think I was. But now Ars Technica has published some benchmark testing. I mean, I wouldn't say it's extensive, but they've done some testing that pretty much confirms exactly what I have been saying. Specifically, Ars tested a handful of games on the Legion Go, which is the Steam Deck competitor, which by default comes with Windows. So they tested on the Legion Go under 3 different scenarios. So the competing scenarios were they tested the Legion Go with SteamOS, they tested with the default Windows 11 with the default Lenovo drivers, and they tested with Windows 11 with the Asus drivers, so the actual manufacturer drivers. They tried with them. The Legion Go, being a Lenovo product, and the Lenovo drivers were default, but they found that everything ran better with the Asus drivers. And like Doom, the Dark Ages, for example, actually wouldn't even run at all with the Lenovo drivers, citing that, it gave an alert saying that the drivers were out of date. So, I guess there's something in that game that was looking for the deeper manufacturer drivers, or I don't know what they're looking for, but they couldn't even test that one on that scenario. So they tested 5 games. The 5 games that were tested were Returnal, Borderlands 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Homeworld 3, and Doom: The Dark Ages. So they tested under a couple different graphical scenarios, resolutions, and obviously you raise the resolution, the FPS is going to go down, but that, the FPS, the comparisons were still the same. So I'm just going to focus on the results of the high graphics presets 1920 by 1200 resolution test, because the smaller one, it's the same thing but faster FPS. So in these, if you look at the Ars Technica article yourself, you can see these graphs. But in this, for the FPS is what I'm talking about here, Returnal, SteamOS had 33 frames per second FPS, while Windows 11 and the Lenovo drivers only had 18 FPS. Now, when they updated to the Asus drivers, it got a little better, but it still wasn't as good as the SteamOS drivers at 24 FPS. Borderlands, it was a lot more even there with actually SteamOS kind of falling behind. SteamOS 18.3, Windows 11 with Lenovo drivers 18.4, pretty much the same. And then the Asus drivers under Windows 11, 19.6, a little bit higher, not much. Cyberpunk 2077, we're back at it with the Linux SteamOS kind of whipping the others again. So 17.9 FPS SteamOS, 14.4 with the Windows 11 Lenovo drivers, 16.6 with Windows 11 Asus drivers. Homeworld 3, very similar. You got 17.1 for SteamOS, 14.5 for Windows 11 Lenovo drivers, 16.4 Windows 11 Asus drivers. And the last game that they tested on was Doom the Dark Ages. There, SteamOS also came out ahead with 15.3 FPS. Windows 11 Lenovo drivers, wah, wah. We have an NA because they couldn't even get the game to run on that. They got the game to run under Linux when under a scenario under Windows 11, they couldn't even get it to run. And now if they updated Asus drivers, they were able to run it, but still less than SteamOS with only 13.9. So out of those, only on Borderlands 3 was the FPS slightly faster on Windows, but overall showing an obvious clear winner for Linux, Proton, and the SteamOS, Valve, and all of them in general, all the hard work they've done. But unfortunately, overall, even though most games run great on Linux today, there are some games that still require tweaking, others still don't work, and which to be fair, apparently some don't work on Windows either. But and some online games they're blatantly hostile towards Linux. While the games function just fine on Linux, the games or the game servers themselves will actually block you from playing online with their game if they detect that you are using Linux. But we're kind of showing that the technology is there. It's just the support for from the devs and those. So we all deserve a better gaming future, the ability to run games on the best systems that actually are capable to run it the best. So vote with your dollars. Complain to the game companies when your game doesn't support Linux, because it's becoming obvious with the right support that this is the better option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting to me. This is what Valve said back when they first started porting things to Linux, even before there was like a SteamOS. They did this whole write-up about how it was the Left 4 Dead 2, I think, about how that porting that to OpenGL, they were able to push the frame rate up, but also like the latency on it down significantly using, I think back then it was OpenGL versus the X. And it's interesting that's still a thing. It's still possible. It's real fascinating to me that this is true even with the Proton layer in between. But yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and on a handheld design for Windows.
Yeah.
But it's AMD hardware, so not necessarily purely designed for Windows.
I mean, it's all designed for Windows, and us Linux people have to make it work often. But
It made the right move going with AMD.
I mean, for what I'm saying, I mean, a lot of the manufacturers today are providing more actual native Linux support, but it wasn't that long ago where a computer manufacturer, they make their device, they make their Windows drivers. They never made it Linux drivers. Someone else had to come in and figure it out and make drivers for them.
Yeah,
which is improved a lot.
Yes, things have sort of changed though. So like when you're talking CPUs and where they get used, so many of those will go to data center, and so much data center work is on Linux. The interesting thing with GPUs is a lot of those GPU cores are actually going to power AI things now. And guess what OS it is that's doing all of that number crunching? Yeah. It's not Windows.
This article also talks about 10 years ago, they did a write-up, a similar one, where back then, running these games on Linux, it didn't compare. It wasn't as good. But a lot of that is thanks to this Proton layer and the huge improvement they'd done. But even back then, my experience 10 plus years ago, for 10 to 15 years ago, I was a Minecraft player for some time there. I ran a server, all kinds of stuff like that. And at that time, due to gaming, I dual booted. I'd boot into Windows to play a lot of my games. I'd boot into Linux to, go out through my day and do everything. But at that time, for Minecraft, the native Minecraft, because, we're fortunate enough to have a native there. I would boot into, this is the exact same computer. I would boot into Linux and get literally double the FPS. This is an older computer, so I want to say I was getting like 64 FPS compared to like 30 at the time, if that.
You said native Minecraft. Well, as native as anything written in Java can be.
It's Java. It's cross-platform, but it's either way,
it's one step away from native.
It's as native as it gets anywhere.
As that application gets anywhere. Yes.
Yeah. But even then it ran faster.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of which, there's a couple of things that I am going to jump into right now. And that is we've got another Wine release, Wine 10.11. And there is a thing that is percolating in Wine that is not quite ready yet, but is really close. So this is Michael's coverage on it, and it's NT-Sync. No, not the boy band from the 2000s. This is the synchronization primitive that got added to the kernel to make it act more like Windows, specifically for Wine. And Wine 10.11 has some of the groundwork laid for that. I believe programs like Proton already support this. I'm pretty sure it's already in there. So this is just getting this upstreamed in a way that is acceptable to the Wine developers. And then I'm sure Proton will switch to it eventually. But if you're still running vanilla Wine, then this is going to make quite a difference. It really is a big speed up on some titles in particular. And of course, there is your other, fixes and new things in Wine as there normally is. They have 25 known bug fixes for a bunch of different games. Some very fun games mentioned here, like Command & Conquer Generals, 0 Hour, Fallout 3, Thief 2, and Civilization 3. So some big titles. So Wine is continuing to make progress. There is another bit of interesting gaming speed up news, and that is that the RADV Vulkan driver. So this is in Mesa. The driver inside of Mesa has added a ray tracing optimization that is strictly RDNA 3 and newer, which I believe RDNA 3 is the AMD that just came out, is their latest cards. And we looked at sort of the performance between Windows and Linux and the RDNA 3 cards and the older cards. And one of the things that we pointed out, RDNA 3 was the ones released in 2022, so that's the 7000 series and newer. So we're on our RDNA 4. I misremembered that. I'm glad I looked. Anyway, so this is it's a plug for RDNA 3 and RDNA 4, and it's going to make ray tracing quite a bit faster on those particular cards. Let's see. I mean, it's a moderate improvement. So in one case, a trace took 4.45 milliseconds and it dropped down to 4.40, which that you're not going to be able to feel. But in another case, it dropped from 5.39 to 4.35 milliseconds. That's like a 20% improvement. That you'll be able to feel. So it just depends. It's going to vary from game to game. But this is another, it's another win. We'll see it in Mesa 25.2. And if you have a current generation or previous generation AMD card, you'll see a bump in ray tracing performance as a result. So that's cool. Gaming on Linux, it's getting better.
Yes, it is.
Yep. I enjoy I have not gamed. I've not gamed for a long time. Like a game that actually has ray tracing, a AAA adjacent title. Well, I haven't done much of any gaming for quite a while, but a title that's AAA enough to have ray tracing turned on, it's been a long time. I enjoy it. I just don't have time for it.
Yeah, all the graphics are great, but I've historically have had cheaper PCs and just wanted to get performance so much than high graphics. But I guess if I had all the stuff I needed, which I guess I do now, but I guess it'd be nice to use it.
Yup. All right, Ken, if I at least am going to be gaming, I'm going to be doing it on KDE, and there's some new news there, isn't there?
Yes, there is. This week we hear from Marius Nestor and Nate Graham about various improvements and bug fixes to Jeff and Jonathan's favorite desktop environment, as you said, KDE Plasma. According to Marius, KDE Plasma 6.4.1 improves text contrast for labels used in subtitles or other secondary roles throughout the Plasma desktop, improves the text readability of list items in KRunner and Discover when they are pressed or clicked, and improves the readability of graph axis labels throughout the Plasma desktop to meet the WCAG AA standard. Now, Nate talks about turning off the highlight window effect for Task Manager thumbnails by default. KDE Plasma 6.4.1 improves the Plasma Discover graphical package manager by improving the list views to be properly navigable. Well, try saying that 3 times with the keyboard. Trimming all white space on the search field to prevent errors when copy-pasting text that ends in a space. I've tripped over that a time or two. And fixing the missing backends section in the settings window that prevented it from working correctly. Now, this release fixed several bugs, including issues related to Jonathan's favorite subject, HDR, Tone Mapper reducing reference luminance, and syncing virtual desktop grid to new virtual desktop order. Now, since I've only touched on the various fixes and improvements, I do suggest reading Marius and Nate's articles for more details, especially how Nate feels this is going to help with addressing accessibility issues.
Yeah, interesting stuff. So where was the detail about tone mapping? I was doing the thing where I was looking at another link, and now I'm trying to remember exactly what you said and find it in your articles.
Well, it's actually in Marius's article, or I may have gotten that from the actual...
the changelog itself?
Yep.
Let's see.
But Tumbleweed is up there with it.
KWin Core OpenGL allow the tone mapper to reduce reference luminance more. I am very intrigued by this.
And I don't know if that's going to be big enough for everybody to see on their screen, but my OpenSUSE Tumbleweed virtual machine is actually running 6.4.1.
It is mirrored. Gotta look at it upside down and backwards.
All right, let me...
Can you hit the right buttons? Don't crash your browser again.
No, we don't want to do that.
No. I mean, it was entertaining, but
We'll take your word for it.
That's all right. Yeah.
And I might be able to... trying to think where I can...
We could fix that in post. You got that, TWiT guys, right?
I mean, they could. I doubt that. There it is. I saw that.
Restream was mirroring it.
Yeah, it even came with a fun little animation when you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. It's cool.
There.
All right.
Yeah. So OpenSUSE Tumbleweed's rolling right along with it.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for it to get the next update of Pipewire, which I'll talk about later.
Yeah. There is another bit of KDE news this week. Another Nate Graham blog that actually came out today. And I think it's got some new stuff in it that you didn't mention, Ken. And one of the big ones here is that they've implemented support for the XX Session Management V1 hooks in Wayland inside Qt 6.10. Right. And so you kind of have to imagine the way the whole stack for KDE works. So when they want to add something, they go to the Wayland GitLab where it's hosted there, and they say, hey, we would like to add the ability to do, in this case, session restore. It's not just the KDE guys who have been asking for session restore, but they're one of them. We would like to do session restore. Well, in this particular case, there's been bike shedding and yak shaving around it for years, but finally it landed. And then because KDE is built on top of Qt, the Qt libraries, it has to be added to Qt, which that has now happened. And so, if Wayland is the top layer, Qt is the next layer, and then we're ready now to be able to do the bottom layer, which is, it's not the bottom layer, it's the next layer, which is, hey, let's add the session management stuff to be able to do session restore into KWin and KDE Plasma. And great, that'll be good. And then, you get to the layer below that and you'll have the ability for a web browser when next time you open it to go, I would like the windows to be here, 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 and here. And then finally, when Chrome crashes and you open it back up, instead of having all of your windows stacked on top of each other, it can actually put them back where they were. And talking through all of that, this is a lot of work for a silly feature, but it's going to feel so good when it finally works. There's other things in here as well, and one of the particularly interesting one is the accessibility thing. And so this is something that I don't know if you've paid attention. There's been a lot of chat and chatter around accessibility in Wayland and how there are still some problems. But Nate has a bit of a comment about it in here. And, he talks about a couple of things that they've changed for accessibility reasons. And I believe it's I'm not seeing it at the moment, but I believe it is in this article that he makes a statement that, we've all heard about the accessibility problems in Wayland, but it's actually not bad in KDE, and they are, they're definitely trying to make it better. In fact, the article I was reading, he made the statement, they're putting their money where their mouth is and paying for some work for accessibility in KDE. So it's coming along. It's coming. Fun stuff.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I'm totally lost into the HDR and the tone mapper thing. You guys, you've got me on this rabbit trail. Goodness gracious.
Now, should we get you going down looking for a phone?
So is this a different phone? We just 1 or 2 weeks ago, we talked about one phone. Is this a different one, Rob?
I haven't heard of one phone. Who makes that one?
Well, I think there is. I think there is a one phone, but
maybe we didn't talk about that.
You got to listen to Android Faithful to learn more about that one,
I guess.
But yeah, I do bring up Linux phones on here from time to time, once or twice a year. It seems like, because there's a lot more of them than you really kind of realize. And mainly the reason is because this is a feature I really want to see happen. And this year I'm bringing it up twice so far. And it's something, I think it's something we really need, and there's no reason we shouldn't have more mainstream Linux phones. So there are a handful of phone makers out there, trying to make it a thing. Unfortunately, they are all somehow mostly very forgettable. Like we forgot what we just talked about a few weeks ago. Or like this one, the Fairphone. I've heard of them before and I forgot about them, but I've heard about it again. And I looked into them now to see what they have announced here. So they just announced their Fairphone 6. And, although I've heard of the Fairphone, I have forgotten all about them until now. So the new Fairphone still isn't as cheap as a Pine phone, probably not as cheaply built either, but it is far more cheaper, or should I say far more affordable than the quote affordable phone option I brought up a couple weeks ago. This one coming in at around $695 US. So besides being a phone that can run Linux, one of the great features of the Fairphone is that it has a focus on repairability. Being easy to take apart, swap out parts, and put back together. Unlike these glued monsters that most of us have today. And the specs of the Fairphone 6 should be a lot faster than most computers. Most of the old computers we used to have. Faster than what Ken is running today. Starting with being powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 internal storage, expandable to 2 terabytes via microSD, a 6.3-inch OLED 120 hertz display, 4,415 milliamp battery, last up to 2 days, they say. Mm-hmm. There's a 50 milliamp main camera and a 13 megapixels. I meant a 50 megapixel main camera and a 13 megapixel ultra camera. So by default, this phone isn't exactly a Linux phone. I thought that's what I was going into when I went down the rabbit hole on this. But so out of the box, it's not a Linux phone. After reading the Phoronix article about this new Linux phone, I went to the site to find out more about it. How can I purchase it? Where can I purchase it? And all I could find were Android options. They have the regular one. They have a de-Googled Android one. So it's pretty cool. But eventually, in their FAQ under the support section, I found that they provide detailed instructions to install Linux on this phone. And the recommended way, I haven't tried it, the recommended way sounds pretty easy, as they say the recommended way is to just do it through their Fairphone Updater app. I suppose that's like their software center, essentially. Which unfortunately, the link in their FAQ section, it goes to a dead link in the Google Play Store.
Oh,
it's not there. So I don't know if they just haven't updated their FAQ and it's somewhere else, and hopefully they still have it.
It may be that as an American coming to the Play Store from the US, you cannot get to that link. That is a thing that happens sometimes.
Well, maybe. So if
time to use a VPN.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't work for you, they continue with the directions on how to manually do it. So although their Fairphone seems like a decent Android device, even selling a de-Googled version, I'm a little bit disappointed it doesn't come with Linux out of the box. But also, it's great that they at least provide Linux tree drivers, right out or on day one that's been released, and directions, which I haven't been able to test because nobody's bought me one of these phones yet. But there's directions. Everyone, you would need. Hopefully, everything you would need is there to upgrade it to Linux. Mm-hmm. I had hoped for a little bit more, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's some phone distros out there that you could totally put on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, sure there are plenty of other more mainstream phones out there that you can pull Linux on, but they don't make it as easy as this one is supposedly. So it seems like a fairly standard spec phone could compete with most of your phones today, I think. Mm-hmm. So it seems like potentially a good option.
Do you think they could guarantee 8 years of software support if they did ship it with Linux on it by default?
I mean, you can't. Oh, you can guarantee stuff, but
you can guarantee anything.
Yeah.
You can promise anything, but you never know what the future brings. If you could install Linux on it, I guess the only thing that would stop it is if whatever the hardware in there gets dropped from the kernel, and I won't see that happening in 8 years at least. unless they're using some really old hardware, which from what I read, they're not.
Yeah, I think it's probably more the danger would more be that the support never fully lands in the kernel at all. That would be the would be the one to really worry about.
Yeah.
Unless you had a hardware manufacturer helping to support that.
I mean, even then, you can't guarantee that it's going to happen. But
yeah, I mean, we'll talk later on about how Linus, keeps things out of the kernel.
He didn't keep it out of the kernel this time.
Just don't try to submit it as a feature in the middle of a.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, no, this is interesting. The almost Linux phone from Fairphone is definitely interesting.
Yeah, Fairphone's been around for a while. I've heard of them. I hear
they're up to 6 already.
Yeah, they're already up to 6. I do hear about them every few years and then forget all about them. And maybe.
Yeah.
Would you like to go back to the days of BIOS with it?
That would be an experience. Probably not a good experience, but it'd be an experience.
An experience.
But Liam Proven wrote about a new iteration of a project as a modern C++ user interface library. The project is called Cosmo, that's COSMOE, and it pulls off several neat tricks. First, even though Cosmo is a newly announced project, it is surprisingly mature and complete while being lightweight. Now, Cosmo on Wayland is a set of C++ libraries that allows developers to build rich, easy-to-code native Linux apps with the, as I'd mentioned, BIOS API. That's BEOS for those of y'all that are listening only and not able to, wanting to make sure you're hearing right. Now, it comes with supporting infrastructure and tools, plus style guides. According to Liam, developers can build multi-threaded Linux apps in C++ that natively target Wayland. So I think this may be a good way to support the applications coming out in Wayland. Now, although Cosmo on Wayland is new, it has well-established guidelines and a distinctive, fresh, and clean look and feel. This iteration of Cosmo is an implementation of a project to recreate BIOS on top of the Linux kernel, and it's now called Cosmo Classic. Now, Cosmo Classic started out as a port of the userland of, I'm going to spell this out first and then say it the way I think it sounds, ATHEOS or Atheos to the Linux kernel. Athos. Yeah, one of those two. Over time, the original Cosmo evolved into an effort to implement a BOS-compatible operating system on top of a Linux kernel. Liam gives a brief history of the project in his article, including a link to developer Bill Hayden's home for Cosmo. Now, I'm going to ask, could this be a contender in the field of the free and open source software user interface toolkits, going up against opposition from Qt or GTK? To answer that, you may want to read Liam's article for more details before making up your mind.
Probably not, but it is definitely interesting to see it. Sometimes, though, some big company will find something like this and go, oh, it's from the ground up, and so it has the right license, doesn't have any of the tech debt that we're trying to get rid of. Let's go get it and run with it. And that's how you have things like Chromium based on the KDE browser and other crazy things that have happened.
I'm going to say Athos. That's what I'm going to say, Athos.
I was thinking Atheos, but...
ATHOS?
ATHEOS.
Atheos.
Atheo operating system.
Yeah.
Atheos.
Atheo, yeah, that works too. however you want to say it, man. The thing with the letters. That's it's always fun to see stuff like this. People doing it just for the kind of the throwback. And it's really interesting to see a new project spin up to be able to do Wayland stuff. Like I said, you might see somebody pick this up and actually do something really interesting with it. It's so hard to tell.
Especially if you do download and play with it, it comes with some example applications.
It's always handy. Always handy. All right, so let's take a look at Canonical. Hey, I think that's what's next.
Oh, time to bash on them, huh?
Well, actually, they're doing sort of a victory lap, to be honest with you. So this is something that Michael Larrabell at Phoronix found, and this is the annual report for Canonical. It's for the year 2024. So, we're getting close to, we are halfway through 2025 already. Oh my goodness. Almost through. Basically,
what is their calendar year? What is their calendar year though?
So it says that it's the annual report for the year end 31st of December 2024. So apparently Canonical has a business year that coincides with the calendar year, which I don't understand why a company would not want to do that. I'm sure there's legitimate business reasons. Anyway, they have their revenue and their margin percentages and their head counts on here. And it's really interesting. So in 2023, Canonical had a revenue of $251 million. In 2024, they had a revenue of $292 million. They're doing well. Their cash flow before taxes in 2024 was $85 million. They did well. They made bank. They did really well, and they have 1,175 employees. That is their average headcount for the year, which is up from 2023. It's good news for it's really good news for Canonical. Yeah. It looks like their operating profit, if these are in millions, was $15.5 million. So they did very well for their shareholders. I mean, it's not huge, right? It's not Apple money or ExxonMobil money, but for a purely open source group, or mostly open source, a Linux group like Canonical is, yeah, it's really good. Michael has a thought in here about, it's been a while since he's heard any talks of Canonical going for an IPO. They talked about that back in 2022, but it came and passed, and there wasn't an initial public offering. But their numbers look really good, and so like if they were to spin out into an IPO, it would be successful. IPOs are really good for making the founders lots and lots of money. It's not necessarily a great thing for most businesses, but definitely makes some people very wealthy. Anyway, we will see if that happens. But, we do occasionally like to bash on Canonical, but I will say good on them. Good on them for making some money and giving people a really good Linux distro. One of the most popular Linux distros for sure. I don't know if I'd say it's the best, but it is one of the Linux distros, definitely.
If the founders are profiting $15 million a year, sure, they can make more money with an IPO, but do they really need it?
Not this particular founder.
I mean, how big of a yacht do you want?
I guess some of them are pretty expensive. I assume. I've never looked into it, but so I think the moral that you're saying here is if you're looking to donate to an open source project, Canonical doesn't need your money. Give it to somebody else. They'll
accept it, but they don't need it.
Yeah, there are places out there that are really in need of operating funds. I'm not going to tell anybody to not give to Canonical, but yeah, they're doing all right. They're making some money,
and they are for profit, aren't they?
Yes, they're just a business.
Yep. Yes.
One that's helping to keep Mark Shuttleworth. Did I say that right?
You did?
Mm-hmm.
For what?
As wealthy as he was before he started it.
I mean, hey, they actually made money. That's a good step towards not losing money.
Unless that's what you intended to do because you needed a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Well. That was the purpose. He got into it. He thought, I need some tax write-offs, and it backfired. Horrible. Yeah. I need to find a way to make that kind of money.
Yeah. Not there yet either.
Legally.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Rob, let's talk about the drama now.
All right.
There is some. Definitely drama.
We talked, I think it was just last week, about the Bcache FS drama. How Linus scolded them for trying to add features, feature updates at the release candidate stage of the Linux kernel. The stage in which updates are supposed to be completely, only bug fixes, no new features. So Bcache FS, they had a lot to say in response, but I'm not going to go into that this week because there's a, check out last week's source if you want, but there's plenty of new stuff to talk about. This week I'm only here to update you that on what's new. So the Linux 6.16-RC3 was released, and notably initially there was going to be some things missing, but on June 26th, so as of today, a couple days ago, Linus wrote, "I have pulled this, but also per that discussion, I think we'll be parting ways in the 6.17 merge window. You made it very clear that I can't even question any bug fixes, and I should just pull anything and everything. Honestly, at that point, I don't really feel comfortable being involved at all. And the only thing we both seem to really fundamentally agree on is that decision was, or on that discussion was, we're done." That's pretty strong words, but Kent's reply from the Bcache FS team. He says, "Linus, I'm not trying to say you can't have any say in Bcache FS. Not at all. I positively enjoy working with you when you're not being a D with a male body part. But you can be genuinely impossible sometimes, a lot of the times. When Bcache FS was getting merged, I got comments from other file system maintainers that were pretty much great. We finally have a file system maintainer who can stand up to Linus. And my word, stand up to that bully." And continue on with his quote. And having been on the receiving end of a lot of venting from them about what was going on and more that I won't get into, I don't want to be in that position. I'm just not going to have any sense of humor where user data integrity is concerned or making sure users have the bug fixes they need. Well, then just put the bug fixes they need, not features. So anyway, back to his quote. "Like I said, all I've been waiting for is for you to tone it down and stop holding pull requests over my head as the place to have that discussion. You have genuinely good ideas and you are bloody sharp. It is fun getting stuff done with you when you're not battling, when we're not battling. But you have to understand the constraints people are under, not just myself." So that's really the full thing from the log. And I don't know where this is going to go. Will this conflict be resolved, or will they be parting ways?
Yeah, so what does parting ways mean? What does that look like?
You're out of the kernel and you can do DKMS. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like Torvalds is planning to pull Bcache FS out of the kernel for 6.17. Interesting times. Yeah.
When's I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the cadence. I know we've talked about it. How soon can we expect to see this? I mean, you're more.
Which RC did we just RC3?
Yes.
So somewhere between 3 and 6 more RCs. somewhere in there, depending upon how long it takes for things to settle down, then they will.
I mean, that'll be this summer then.
Yeah. So 3 to 6 weeks, basically the end of the summer is.
Well, I should say this summer for us in the northern hemisphere. I know we have some listeners in the southern hemisphere, which is winter now, I guess. Well, not even yet. Is it? What day is it today? Never mind. It is summer here and winter there.
Yep. Yeah. So 3 to 6 weeks, somewhere around there. We'll see the RCN get a full release, and then the merge window will open. We'll see how Linus feels then.
I'm definitely curious to see what happens here.
I wonder if this article by Michael has anything to say about it.
Which one is that?
The one I just put in the club twit?
The 1 week later merge. Yeah, this is the article that talks about the mailing list message.
Yeah, I didn't see that article yet, but it's exactly, he's just writing it up from the mailing list message that I found.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole thing was it was questionable whether what Kent sent in was a bug fix or if it was a new feature. Because what they did is they found a scenario where data could be lost, but to fix it, they sort of had to invent a new feature to catch it and fix it, right? So it was this bit of code that really walked the line between the two.
And I don't know why he didn't specifically, Kent. Why didn't he just specifically say that? It looks like if that's the case, I haven't dug into that. Why not Kent say, Linus, this is, I understand this is a gray area, but what I put in there is fixing a bug. I mean, say that specifically if that's the case, instead of halfway walking around it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think from a certain perspective, it was obviously a new feature, but from another perspective, it was obviously there to prevent data corruption. And so that's where the difference of opinion came from. Yeah. Anyway,
So it's one of those where it was both.
Sure. Yeah, both and.
Well, I guess, was the data corruption a bug? That's probably the real question.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. That's just how it was designed.
All right, Ken, is there a new Pipewire release? Is that what I see?
Yes, just yesterday, in fact, Marius Nestor wrote about the Pipewire project releasing Pipewire 1.4.6. Now, this latest maintenance update is here to fix bugs that could crash the filter chain and ALSA plugin, fix a ref count issue in the device provider, improve latency reporting in the module combined stream, and improve save activation, deactivation of the filter graph in module filter chain to avoid crashes. It also enables interrupts after an ALSA error to keep the data flow going, adds an option to disable remote audio output protocol, or what's commonly referred to as RAOP, with a context.property, adds support for the alsa.use-UCM property for the ALSA UDEV plugin, improves some code paths in the Pulse server mixer, and improves resetting of some stats after an ALSA error. Marius' article also reviews some of the other features provided by the 1.4 series of Pipewire that we have mentioned in some of the previous episodes. As always, I recommend reading the article just to see what I skipped over.
Yeah, interesting stuff. I'm desperately considering installing Fedora 43 to this laptop and getting all that new Pipewire goodness.
Just to get up to 1.4.5?
Yeah, well, that and a whole bunch of other things. I'm on Pop! OS on this machine, and it's beginning to feel a little creaky. So I don't know. We may temporarily abandon the Pop! OS experiment on this until maybe it's time to test run
Well, how long did we ask you to do it for?
Less time than I've done it. I don't remember. Maybe a year? Was it a year? It's been way over a year at this point. 6 months? I don't remember.
2 years?
Yeah.
I think it was only 6 months when you.
I think it was 6 months. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe soon. Maybe soon. Might wait until we get the new laptop and set them both up at the same time. I don't know.
You passed, so.
Yeah. I passed.
And by then, Pop OS will come out with 2404.
Maybe. Yeah, I think their next release is going to be Cosmic powered, and so they're waiting for Cosmic to get to beta or stable.
Yep.
All right. Well, there is a release with some fun stuff that I want to cover real quick, and that is the latest Blender version. We have Blender 5.0, and it has some really interesting things in it. One of the big ones, though, is support for HDR on Wayland. Not on X11, but on Wayland, you can run Blender with HDR support. It is an alpha right now, and so not a full release yet, but you can go get the alpha and try it out. You want to make sure you're using the Vulkan backend, and then go into Developer Extras under Preference and Interface, and then you can enable the Vulkan HDR support. Under Preferences, Experimental. It's experimental. Are you getting the impression that this is sort of an experimental alpha thing that is not quite ready for prime time? But they've got it, and so now you can, in a scene, configure it to use HDR and display it with high dynamic range. And that's a really cool thing to see come along in yet another program. And one of the last things that they mention here is that the feedback from this will be used to decide if they're going to move the feature out of experimental and if it's going to be a full-on part of the 5.0 release. So any of you that are Blender users, if you're on a modern Linux system, meaning it's running Wayland, go give it a try. Pull the alpha and go flip the things on and see how well it works. So the top comment on this thread is, are there any plans for Windows support? And the official response is, no official plans yet. Linux Wayland support was easy as it fitted into what we'd already laid out. We did test on Windows, but it had limitations and required more work than expected. Any developer could pick it up. Patches welcome.
Wow.
That's great. So yeah, if you want to work in HDR and Blender, time to come to Linux.
And bring an HDR monitor with you.
Yeah.
I think the theme of this show is how Linux is better.
Yeah. 2025 is the year of the Linux desktop.
There we go.
Gaming desktop, at least.
Yeah, at least. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, speaking of Linux, there's a fun little thing in the kernel. Rob, is this... What is this, Rob?
We already.
It's not a command line tip.
Well, it's not a command line tip. It's just a fun little tip on seeing things in the kernel. I'm guessing you've already maybe took a peek at this. I'm going to share my screen, and there's a little URL. So for those not watching, you want to know what I'm looking at. It is vidarholen.net/content/word count. So it's VIDARHOLEN. And hopefully you got the rest. Otherwise, just find the show notes for the link. So what this is you can see a various word count over time. On the screen, I have the file system's word count, which by default they have Butterfs, XFS, NTFS, ext4, UMDOS. And looking at this graph, the NTFS file system had a big peak where it was in a lot of the parts of the kernel commits, whereas in the end here, more recently, XFS is top one. They have UMS-DOS, which has a tiny little. Well, it was number one, I guess, at the very beginning, and then dropped down to nothing. but you can change, let's do a ZFS or ZFS, and see if what does that do? And you can also remove stuff like that. So there's ZFS in there. Nothing recent. It was in there from like 3.11 to 4.18 release candidate. But there's also other defaults like Starnix, hacks, garbage. So they have various forms of the word garbage: trash, garbage, rubbish, junk. And the word garbage just grows and grows and grows. And the others are kind of down there. 64-bit Booleans, love, hate, love, hate, meh. How often those are in there? Love is in there a lot. And people, Torvalds, whatever. You can put your own name in there and find out where you talk about or where it's in there. I'm surprised to see my last name has been mentioned a few times over the years. Probably not me because I haven't done anything. Companies, you got Red Hat, Oracle, Google. Right at the end there, Apple? Oh yeah, I suppose that's with Asahi. Asahi probably really brought that up to the top. And there's even a tab for swearing. I'm not going to click on that, but it's still fun to see how much swearing is in the kernel commits. So it's just a fun little thing to kind of see these things. Looks like it's somebody's personal project. If you go to Holland.net, I think I said Holden before, but Holland. Anyway, if you go there, he's got some other projects too. I haven't looked at any of them, but maybe there's some other fun things to look at for this person's personal pet projects or whatever they are. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I like it. All right, Ken, I think you've got entertainer / teacher.
Yes, I do.
All right.
And this week, I am going to be going over how to set or get permissions for the clients that you have in Pipewire. Permissions that we're talking about are going to be for being able to read from, write to, execute, change metadata, or in some cases, create a link. Now, the basic command for getting a client's permission, let me go ahead and bring up my screen here. There we go. And just so I'm not having to try to type it in and y'all wait forever for me, it's going to be get permission followed by the client ID. So what I want to do first is find some links that we can work with, because they will help us with getting the information for clients. I need to have links up. So let me pull up real quick. Rob got me playing around with that. Mm-hmm. And y'all may remember this episode of the Apple WWDC. Thought I'd play that back. It's already muted, which helps. And now that I've got that playing back, there you go. Up here, I've got the my QPW graph interface showing. There's that. So as you can see down here, I've got two links for the front left and front right. And they give me the output ports and nodes. But they also give me the client ID, which in this case is 33, which just happens to be what it was the last time I was playing with it. So we're going to get the permissions for that. And the permissions, the information that it comes back with when you type in pw-cli get-permissions 33, it comes back providing remotes of 0, which is the Pipewire daemon, the node for the client, which is in this case 33, with an index of 0, And the default permissions are RWXM for read, write, execute, and metadata. Now, you can also change permissions. And in this case, what I am going to do is the link ID 83 is the one I'm going to change to just no permissions at all. And let's try the node 50. And it's not doing it today.
Live demos.
You gotta love them.
Yeah.
But you see it's hanging. They're trying to do something.
Yeah. That's probably because you've got live data going across that pipe.
Well, I was doing that the other day. No system.
So should that disconnect them when you change
it? It should disconnect that link.
Yeah.
So let's try. Now, you can put an R, and it's not doing it either.
I suspect that something is very unhappy.
Yeah, I want to try something else here.
Live debugging.
And there it did set the permissions. So we're going to change that to that now. It took me a while to get it to do anything. And I love the way that bounces around.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the command line. And let's see look at the links again. And the links have disconnected when I paused it.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're getting the spinny circle now on Chrome. I've seen this.
Yes, I had problems with that as well.
That is what happens when Chrome cannot get an audio output. It just doesn't know what to do. It's like I've got bits to shovel and I can't shovel them anywhere. Yes, I'm familiar with that. Also from playing around with Pipewire.
So we'll close that and that. And we'll go back to VLC, something more trustworthy.
Yeah, we'll see what it does. I think it's going to fail to open.
Possibly. Yeah, this shouldn't have any effect, but let's see if it does.
So did you set your permissions on your main? Oh, there it came up. I was going to say, did you remove all the permissions for the main output, and so now nothing can talk to it?
If I did, I know how to get it back. There we go. And let's just find the command. I've got a whole bunch of notes here.
I was going to say, it's in the notes somewhere.
I've also got it in my show notes.
Oh, there you go.
What I'm wondering is why it keeps hanging like that, like it's trying to do something.
Yeah, that -- user is interesting with systemctl. Pipewire is one of the few things that runs as a user service.
I even, just to see why that would happen, tried doing this with a sudo command. It couldn't find the remote.
Yeah.
Or it couldn't find the Pipewire system.
Because it's
user only.
Yep. That's because it's doing the same thing as Wayland is. It's not running as system-wide. It's just running connected to your user logged in. I suspect that for things to start working, you're going to have to restart Pipewire.
Which I just did.
Oh, did you? No, you listed.
Oh, okay.
That's why it didn't fix anything. So it's a systemctl --user restart Pipewire.
I thought I had that in one of my notes somewhere.
I would do it on my machine, but I'm not running in a VM, so it would not be good.
So I can go back up to here.
I think it's restart and then the name. I can never remember because systemctl does it one way and the old service command did it the other way. Yeah, there you go. Your video started playing. Like magic.
Yep.
Oh, that's fun. You had Pipewire real confused.
Yes, I did. So that's what the permissions can allow you to do. Can really confuse Pipewire if you throw it something that it's not familiar with.
I believe it. I've got a command line tip that I'd like to talk about real quick, and that's something that happened this month to a certain group of our users, of our audience, maybe. If you are in the I Run Arch, by the way, camp, then you may be familiar with this already. Or if you're about to do an update and you haven't done it for a while, you're about to hit this. So we're going to let you know. It is that Linux-firmware, the Linux firmware package, if you're going past the 2025-06-13 upgrade, there is a manual intervention that you have to do. And this is sort of a perfect storm. It's one of those accidental breakages where two different things happened at once and together it's real bad. Well, I say real bad. I don't think it bricks machines. I think it just doesn't work. What Arch did is they split the firmware into several vendor-focused packages. And Linux-firmware itself is now an empty package. And this is because there's so much firmware now that gets shipped with the kernel. They didn't want a single package that was just huge. And so they've split it out into multiple packages. Well, they say, unfortunately, this coincided with the upstream reorganizing the Symlinks layout of the NVIDIA firmware, resulting in a situation that Pac-Man cannot handle. When attempting to upgrade from 2025-05-08 or earlier, you see the following errors. And it's that Linux firmware NVIDIA already exists in the file system. So basically, it's complaining that it's getting the same file from two different packages. To progress with the system upgrade, first remove Linux firmware and then reinstall it as part of the upgrade. And so they even have the commands here. It's pacman -RDD Linux firmware, and then pacman SYU Linux firmware, I believe, brings it back. The first one to delete it, the second one to bring it back, to update it. I don't know. I don't run Arch. I don't know what Pac-Man does. But anyway, we've got the link in the show notes. And so if you've had trouble trying to update in Arch and you were not aware of this, that is what's going on. And now you know. So it's nice to know that some of the other... Rob is muted. He's over there flapping his jaws.
Pac-Man is like DNF. Pac-Man is DNF to you.
I know what it is. Yes, Rob. Thank you. I don't use it.
Well, you should.
I should, huh?
Okay.
Maybe one of these days I will join the Arch Club.
But I did find a way to use grep with the Pipewire information so that you can display up to 15 lines before and or after the item you're looking for.
That is a super useful thing that grep can do. Give you context lines. I have to talk about that in a command line tip at some point, exactly how to do that. Sounds like a good one for one of us to handle next week. All right. That is it. That is the end of the show. We've covered the news. We've covered the tips. I'm going to let each of the guys plug whatever they want to plug. Rob is trying to fix his camera with some success. But we're going to let him cut away to his website and plug, I'm guessing, robertpcampbell.com.
There you go. You got it all done for me. My work here is done. So
you can run off into the sunset.
Yes. So for those who want more of me, come find my web presence at robertpcampbell.com. And from there, you can find links to my LinkedIn, Twitter, Blue Sky, Mastodon, and a place to donate a coffee to me. And that being said, I forgot to mention it, but someone did donate me a coffee a few weeks ago. It was anonymous. I don't have a name, so thank you, someone. And they, with donating that coffee to me, they said thank you for the update. Or not? They said update Kuma, but they meant uptime Kuma. One of my tips I had a few weeks ago. So you are welcome, and I hope I can bring more. I hope I can be useful to more people.
Fun. All right. Ken, you have anything you want to plug?
Just remind everybody, back up, and make sure you're able to SSH into your system.
Beep, beep, beep.
For those of you on Discord, you may have saw where I posted earlier that I finally got the tumbleweed boot on my system working again by SSHing into it after just letting it go through its thing. So I knew it was at least booted up. And when I SSH in, I got the DOS prompt, and I was able to just use top grade to go through and do an upgrade from the terminal. And then I said,
installing updates fixed it.
There was an update that caused the problem and an update that fixed it.
Yup. Fun stuff. All right. Appreciate you guys being here. Covered a lot of good stuff this week. If you want to find more of me, most of it is over at Hackaday. That's where that's where Floss Weekly is at, and that's also where my security column goes live every Friday morning. If you care to check that out, sure appreciate you doing so. And we appreciate those of you that get us here on TWiT. Should think about Club TWiT if you're not part of it. It's a price of 1 or 2 cups of coffee, depending upon where you go to buy your coffee. Per month, definitely worth it. It gets you access to the shows ad-free, and it's a way to support the shows and the people that you care about. We appreciate that. We appreciate everybody that watches and listens, those that get you live and on the download, and we will be back. We'll see you next week on the Untitled Linux Show.
Hey, buddy, are you a geek? Are you a tech enthusiast? Then I would love to invite you to join a tech community like no other. You can gain exclusive access to our incomparable quality tech content with Club TWiT. As a member, you'll enjoy all TWiT TV shows ad-free, plus access private video feeds for insider shows like iOS Today, Home Theater Geeks, and so much more. Dive into the members-only TWiT Plus bonus feed for behind-the-scenes content, club discussions, and special events. But here's the best perk. Join our incredible Discord community to watch live show productions, chat with hosts, and participate in exclusive members-only activities. It's your backstage pass to the world of TWiT. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or a lifelong learner, Club TWiT elevates your knowledge while entertaining your interests. Get 2 weeks free when you sign up now and unlock unparalleled access at twit.tv/clubtwit. That's twit.tv/clubtwit. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you and welcome to the club.